And 3, 2, 1, and go. All right, guys, this is Online Archery Challenge podcast number 1. I got Frank here, your host and founder of OAC. Our first guest for podcast number 1, a little impromptu, is one of the competitors from Team G-Force Outdoors Products, Grant Burnett. Grant is our guest today because he scored today on Tennessee turkey season, spring turkey. So, how you doing, Grant?
I'm doing awesome, man. I really appreciate you having me on.
Sure.
I'm excited for OAC this year, and today was an awesome day.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I saw the picture you tagged me in on Facebook and was just absolutely excited, man. The spurs on that bad boy looked like they were pretty mean. Looked like you'd been through some tangles, I guess, this year already.
Yeah, we're judging him about a 4 to 5-year-old bird. He's got just over an inch and a quarter spurs, so he's a good one. He's my personal best, and just happened to be with a bow, so that's always a plus.
That's great. So I'll tell you what, before we go too far, tell us about what kind of gear you were using. Give us the setting. What were you hunting? Were you hunting out of a blind? Were you on the ground? Were you in a chair? What bow? What broadheads? Whatever, everything. Give us the skinny.
Okay. Well, as you mentioned, I'm on Team G-Force, so I'm using all their camo, G-Force Evolved camo. Today I was in the all-season pants. It was a little bit cool this morning, so I had the all-season pants, plus they're a little bit more waterproof. But anyways, had those, and then the early season shirt and scouter hoodie. Of course, I've always got my Fatal gear with me, so I had my Fatal blackout mesh hat. And then as far as my bow, had an Athens Solace today, and shooting 340 Easton FMJs tipped with veteran VIP broadhead, and it absolutely ate that turkey up. That's
awesome. So you didn't go for the decap, you went for the body?
He was at 35 yards and strutting.
Gotcha.
Could not get him out of strut, and I went straight, just stuck those wings together.
Heck yeah, man! That's the smart shot. I mean, I'm all for the decap if I'm at 5, 10 yards, maybe 15, but I don't know. I like the meat a little too much to even risk a miss. I don't need to hold out for a 4.5-year-old bird. You know what I mean? I'll take the first one with a beard that comes by, but so that's awesome. So is this your first turkey with a bow?
First bird with a bow, man. This was it.
That's phenomenal. And with that being said, the big question, because this is obviously the Online Archery Challenge podcast, would you say that OAC helped you?
Absolutely. For one, the biggest thing was just when I sent you a message, earlier today, was I thank you for getting us involved and keeping us shooting year round. That's the biggest thing, is just continuing to shoot. I mean, I shoot throughout the year, but to make it competitive and to where you're competing with other folks and there's folks holding you accountable and kind of depending on you to score points, everything encompassed is great. And then on top of that, the sponsorship you've got with Nice Targets really helped me learn the vitals on a turkey, because they're tricky. Turkeys they've got a small little target to aim at, especially if you're taking a broadside shot. And I owe a lot of credit to OAC, and then again to those Nice Targets, and the challenges that we do to learn the vitals on a turkey. And I credit that to the success that I had today.
Oh, man. Well, I mean, that's great to hear, and I appreciate the kind words. You've sort of been in OAC since its inception. You weren't around for the first year, but you were around for the second year, and then obviously this year. And, you kind of hit it on the head. That was the vision. It was just getting to the vision and kind of still to this day refining it. I think, but your story, which is kind of, it's fresh in your mind, your hunt's fresh in your mind. That's why I was like, you know what? I've been meaning to put together this first podcast. Wasn't really sure which or who or how or what. So I wanted to it needed to be meaningful. And I thought, man, Grant just shot a bird today. I also, and I have to mention her, Christine Abelman shot her first turkey bird today also. I messaged her, and I was actually going to call her and merge your calls together and interview both of you at the same time. But, for first podcast, maybe that's a little too technical. I don't know. And, so I gotta give a shout out to her real quick, just because it's on my mind.
Yeah.
She shot her first bird. It was awesome. They're out putting bear bait out, I believe she said, so she wasn't going to be able to call in. But so that's today. And one of your teammates, Brian Keitlinger, shot a bird yesterday, I believe, right?
Yeah, and he took the headshot, bro, at 30 yards.
And he took it, and he got it.
He took it and got it. That's right. That's right.
And that's the first thing he did. He private messaged me the grainy video, because I think he took a video of the video with his phone, and he messaged me. He was like, "Man, OAC got one today," and I was like, I don't know what his exact words were, something along those lines, and I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, what happened?" I was like, "You got another bird," and he was like, "Yeah." He goes, "I shot him from my knees." Apparently, I don't know if he was in a blind on his knees or if he was just on his knees out in a cutoff or what. The video sort of looked like it was a cutoff, but and he was like, "I shot it from my knees like 35 yards or 30 yards or whatever," and I was like, "No way!" And then I saw the clearer version of the video, and it's an epic shot for sure.
It's great. Yeah, you were asking earlier about my hunt. I'm used to shotgun hunting turkeys. It's just what I was raised doing. So the whole blind thing doesn't mesh in my head. I get really antsy. I can do it deer hunting. If I go turkey hunting, I don't know why, but I get really antsy sitting in a blind. So I didn't have a blind. And what's crazy is it was the 30-yard shot from my knees, crouched down in a little fence row, just like 17.1 or 16.1 last year, Turkey Challenge.
Yes.
And just like a bonus challenge that we've had this year. And again, last year, I told everybody I was amazed at how much I learned in the turkey challenges for OAC, because I very rarely shot from any other thing than standing. I might be seated. I practice that just for deer hunting from a stand, but kneeling or kind of crouched over, anything, not in a deer stand, I have rarely ever practiced. So that was a huge, huge bonus for me to get to do all that and do it under pressure.
So just to piggyback off of that comment, and that's great to hear, the whole challenge actually came from a mistake that I made.
Oh, wow.
3 years ago, hunting out of a blind, I had a 2.5-year-old 8-pointer 32 yards away. He came out into an open clover field. It was during the rut. He came across the top of the field and was going to go away from me about 70 yards up a hill. And so I snort wheezed at him, stopped him dead at his tracks. He was facing away from me, turned around, looked right down at me. And then he turned his head back uphill, snort wheezed at him again, and then he immediately turned around and came right at me. 32 yards was the first time I ever had the opportunity to shoot at a deer out of the blind. And my mistake was not shooting. I'm trying to think of what the circumstances were. When I was practicing out of a blind prior to that, I only shot maybe a half a dozen shots, and I was shooting from my knees. So, it was super low, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I was hunting from a chair inside the blind, and I did not take an account for the space. My top limb, when I shot, I take it back. When I drew, my top limb before the shot was already against the top of the blind.
Oh, man.
So when I released, the limb stopped the natural reaction of my follow through. I pushed it a little bit, went forward, hit him forward in the shoulder, ended up losing that deer. And that was immediate lesson learned. And so that's actually the story behind the turkey challenge, because how many of us shoot from a blind or hunt turkeys from a blind, and we buy the blind and just sometimes it's out of sight, out of mind, or we just don't give it legitimate practice out, a fair shake and shoot out of it enough, man, that stuck with me, and it stuck with me. I was sick to my stomach. I remember my wife, it was the last week of the season, I think, here in Pennsylvania, and I remember my wife saying to me, she's like, you looked for the deer for like 2-3 days, and I came to like the last Saturday, I believe, of the season, and I was like, I don't even feel like going. She's like, you better go. She was like, you need to go. You know, it was kind of a sobering experience, but you know, and that's actually how the turkey challenge originated, because of the mistake that I made. Little out of sight, out of mind, new blind hunter. You know, just blinds were never a popular thing around here, and I just always trying it out of a tree stand. But at the time, I started hunting with my son, and a blind with I guess at the time, 4 or 5 years old he was, or I'm trying to think how old he was when that happened. Maybe 6 years old. You know, it's good to conceal their movement. Let's just put it that way.
Right, absolutely.
So, I mean, it's good to hear. I'm happy to hear that, you know, and shooting from those awkward positions, you know, when you don't have your leg muscles to add with your stability.
It got me an antelope in Montana in August of 16.
You know, I think I kind of remember that. You want to elaborate on that?
Okay, so same thing. That's actually the first big game animal I've ever even shot at out of a blind. Just a little, you know, pop-up 4x4 blind. And, you know, that's another thing. You can practice as much in your blind at home as you want, but if you're not practicing those positions like you're talking about, where you don't have your leg muscles, you're in a little bit of an awkward position. You know, you may have to be up on one knee, up on both knees, or whatever. If you're not practicing those, I mean, you go on a hunt that you pay some money for to go out west and get, you know, a new animal to you, a new to you animal. You know, that could cost you your tag. You tag soup on that. And I literally shot him. I was actually, believe it or not, sitting on a cooler. They had a chair in there for me, but the angle wasn't right. So I sat on the cooler. But the 16.1 or the turkey challenge is really what it is that we do, you know, just the prone shooting.
Yeah.
I had practiced it so much that it was second nature to not have to shoot from a seated position or kneeling, whatever. It was second nature at that point, as much practice as we had done.
Yeah, and I think that's awesome. I mean, it's so in those lessons, those things, they stick with us forever. You know, they absolutely do. And I think the shooting from the seated position, I think that also just going to transfer over to shooting out of a tree stand. If you happen to shoot from a seated position or practice from a seated position, like I know, I don't always. I think I base it off of the circumstance. If I have the time to stand and, you know, turn my shoulders, get my feet set and all that stuff, I'll do that. But if I don't, you know, it is what it is. You gotta think outside the box, and I think we've had this discussion numerous times. Nothing replaces practice, ever.
That's right. Absolutely. I mean, that's like, as I said, the biggest thing, too, that I really like about the challenges is the targets that we use, whether it be nice targets or just, you know, we do the Vegas spots. Anything we do with OAC, it's focused. It's not just, hey, shoot at this area. It's focused. We get bonus or extra points for shooting vitals, and even the targets themselves are focused on broadside shots, quartering away shots, and taking those ethical shots. And that's another lesson that you learned. You were talking earlier about the deer that you took out of the blind, and the antelope that I took. It's all about making sure you position yourself to where you're taking the most ethical shot on that animal as possible. And I feel like that we practice that as well with the challenges.
Yeah, and I'm glad you feel that way, because it's, you know, not that I need it, but it's kind of a confirmation to know that what we're doing is purposeful, and that there is actual carryover, because you hear it from a competitor who's able to say, like, you know, it legitimately does help, you know, and that's how OAC started. I mean, it was to promote ethical hunting and to promote the practice necessary for us to put the time in, you know, and become better archers, better bow hunters. Excuse me. But yeah, so that's great stuff. So I appreciate the feedback and your willingness to share, a hunt that didn't work out. And if any other hunter out there says that they've